we will try to see some examples of peasant revolts, and we will try to understand the significance or the nature, or you can say the analysis of peasant revolt in a separate video, right. So, even in the main examination and of course, preliminary examination, they generally ask one question regarding peasant revolts. We must analyze, we must understand this peasant revolt in the context of British economic policy, their agrarian policy, their land revenue policy, and the adverse impact of those land revenue policy. Because they, the peasants, mainly, they also became the worst victims of this colonial rule, right. So, in this video, we will try to just highlight some of the important examples of peasant revolt, right. And out of these examples, right, you will see that most of the questions, right, they are asking. It is fine, right. So, when we say the peasant revolt, you will see that it actually started, right, it actually started just after the establishment of British rule and in Bengal. So, first peasant revolt, so what we are doing, we are discussing, right, the peasant, right, reaction or revolt or the peasant movement. So, peasant movement we are discussing, and I told you that, right, just after the establishment of British rule, they started reacting against the colonial policies, right. So, the first reaction, right, first documented reaction of the peasant revolt was what you call Rangpur reaction. Rangpur reaction, 1783. So, Rangpur in Bengal, right. It is not very popular, right. Probably you would not be familiar with this Rangpur, right. But they can ask you, right. Rangpur also, it is also also considered as a peasant reaction, Rangpur, in 1783 only. And we can add that the peasants of Rangpur, they faced all kinds of illegal demands by the East India Company, and its revenue contractors, So, in Rangpur, right, the peasants, right, they faced all kinds of illegal demands by the East India Company and its revenue contractors, and one very popular contractor, right, was Debi Singh, right. One popular contractor was Debi Singh, and right, they were known for their exploitation, and against them, right, you will see that there was a Rangpur revolt, right. So, Rangpur reaction is generally considered as, right, the first important reaction, peasant reaction, and you can consider it as a peasant reaction, right. Then the second very popular reaction, right, is what you call the Mopla reaction, right, Mopla rebellion or Malabar, right, the Malabar, right, Malabar reaction or Malabar rebellion also, Malabar rebellion. What you have to remember that one Mopla or Malabar rebellion, right, started in 1840s, and one Mopla rebellion, right, was again in 1920s. It was the part of, right, non-cooperation Khilafat influence. So, this is, you can consider this is phase 1, right, of this Mopla or Malabar rebellion, and then of course, there was phase 2 also, right. So, Mopla or Malabar rebellion, it is also considered, we are considering it as peasant reaction, peasant revolt, but there are historians, you will see in your newspaper also, they are generally consider it as what, Hindu Muslim you can say conflict, but it had economic, right, dimension that we have to remember. But yes, some communal tinge, right, you can see because of the leadership, right. Okay, anyhow, so Mopla or Malabar rebellion also started in 1840s. So we can add here that Moplas are the descendants of, descendants of the Arab settlers, right. They were the descendants of the Arab settlers. Some of them were converted Hindus, descendants of Arab settlers, and gradually, right, most of them became what? Tenants, cultivating tenants, landless laborers, petty traders, right. So, they are the descendants of Arab settlers. And when British occupied Malabar, when, right, you can say after British occupation of Malabar, after British occupation of Malabar, right, it was in the last decade of 18th century, right, they introduced, right, they introduced new land revenue administration, new land revenue system, they introduced, right. And this new land revenue system brought, right, hardship, in the life of Moplas, and traditional Muslim intellectuals, right, aroused consciousness among them, and because of that, religion and in the life of Moplas, and traditional Muslim intellectuals, right, aroused consciousness among them, and because of that, religion and economic grievances mixed, intermingled, right. So, religion and economic grievances mixed, and they started what? Reacting. There was open resistance. It is called what? Malabar or the Mopla reaction, right, in the 19th century. And what they started doing? They started, you can say, attacking Genoese. Feudal landlords. Who were Genoese? Feudal landlords. They started attacking Genoese, and Genoese are feudal landlords, that we have to remember, right. Sometime they are asking the terms also, you will see that. So, sometime they can ask what is the meaning of Genoese. So, they were the feudal landlords, right, and we can add that most of them, right, most of these feudal landlords were, you can say, upper caste Hindus, and right, because of this it became what? Hindu Muslim kind of reaction, right. So, open resistance started because of economic grievance, and therefore, you will see, right, open resistance started, and government came out, right, with armed forces, right, and suppressed this revolt, fine, suppressed this revolt. So, Rangpur, Bengal, you will see many reaction by the peasants, but Rangpur at least you should remember. Then in the Kerala, you can say Malabar area, you will see Malabar reaction, and I indicated that there is some Hindu-Muslim angle also here, but in history we generally consider it as a primarily, right, economic reaction, right. So Mopla reaction, and there should be no confusion here. One Mopla reaction in 19th century, and then you have one Mopla reaction after 1920s, right. So of course economic grievances continued, but it had influence of nationalism also. Is this fine? Right. Then third example, next example we can take, and probably it is more popular, and revolt of 1857 probably also influenced them. So after revolt of 1857 you will see many peasant reaction, like the first peasant reaction was Indigo reaction, Indigo rebellion of 1859-60. Is okay? So Indigo agitation of Bengal 1859-60, right, and it was the result of Indigo rebellion. It was the result of the oppression and, right, suppression or the exploitation of peasants of Bengal. So Indigo rebellion in Bengal, right, who were exploiting by the European planters, right, and the planters, we can add the planters, the European mainly, the planters forced the peasants to take a small amount, right, as an advance, and that was a, right, a trick, that was a, you can say, the idea, right, to involve them. So the planters forced the peasants to take a small amount, right, as advance, if you will remember, as advance payment, right, and they were entering into contracts with them, very, right, you can say exploitative, fraudulent contracts, right, and this price paid to them, so you can mention that the price agreed upon or paid to them, for those indigo plants was far below the market price, right. So I hope you are getting now what kind of fraud, what kind of contract, what kind of exploitation was this indigo farming. And indigo, why they were interested in indigo? Indigo was used as a dye for, you can say, cotton cloth, right, where in England, manufactured in England. So they were doing all kind of exploitation in Bengal, right, in that area, right. Okay, Then all those indigo, you can say planters, were Europeans, and they were forcing them to produce indigo on the best, you can say, part of their land that was also very exploitative, right. So, because of that there was reaction. Is this fine? I hope you are getting what kind of exploitation was there. Fraudulent contract, paid below the market price, best part of their land gone, fertility issue. So, they had all kind of difficulties, and when they were not getting their return, they were not getting their money, they were approaching magistrates. Magistrates were what? Magistrates were also what? Europeans. So, where they will go? They realize that now, right, it is very difficult, right, to get justice, and they started reacting, and this is called what? Indigo reaction. So, we can add that the peasants or the rayats of Govindpur village in the Nadia district, Bengal, right. Rayats of Govindpur village, Nadia district, under the leadership of Digambar Biswas and Vishnu Biswas, Digambar Biswas and Vishnu Biswas. These two are, right, Vishnu Charan Biswas or Vishnu Biswas, Digambar Biswas or Vishnu Biswas, right. They revolted, they gave up indigo cultivation, Digambar Biswas and Vishnu Biswas, right. They revolted, they gave up indigo cultivation, and when they gave up, you will see that they were attacked, and when they were attacked, there was counter offensive, you will see counter force, right, organized by the villagers, peasants, and then the reaction started, right, fine. So, this reaction is a very popular reaction, So, why this indigo revolt? When this revolt started, where this revolt started, who led this revolt? These are some important questions. They are asking question, right. Then we can add one more dimension here in the indigo revolt that would be very interesting in, right, in these 2-3 revolts of, you can say, in 1860s, 70s, right, that in this indigo revolt, intelligentsia also played important part. So, we can add that intelligentsia also played important role, right, This would be a very interesting factor, right, in these kind of peasant revolt. You will see that intelligentsia played very important role, right, and we can add that, right, their problems, the problems of indigo farmers, right, where you can say vividly, right, portrayed, right, by Deen Bandhu Mitra, Deen Bandhu Mitra, right, in his play Neel Darpan, right, enacted in 1869. Is this okay? So, sometimes they can ask you even, right, in UPSC they have asked, right, 2-3 events, and they are asking you to organize it in chronological order. This is a very typical kind of question of modern India. They are giving you 4 events, any event they will, initially they were giving events related to one area. Now they are not giving events related to one area, any event, one tribal revolt related event, one working class related events, one peasant right revolt related event, they will give you and they will ask you to arrange, right. So therefore you must remember when exactly, if not exactly date, 50s 60s you should remember. So vividly portrayed by Dinbandhu Mitra in his Neel Darpan. So intelligentsia right started helping peasants, this is very important dimension of the peasant revolt. Then we can also add here that right missionaries right missionaries also extended their active support, and then right Harish Chandra Mukherjee right, he also played important role, he was a journalist, he was the editor of Hindu Patriot, right. So Harish Chandra Mukherjee also played important role, right. So in this revolt you can see a great mobilization, missionaries also coming right and helping the riots. They are saying that no, this kind of exploitation cannot be tolerated, this was unprecedented. Then Harish Mukherjee, right, then different kind of student wing, right, they all started talking about this kind of issue, and finally the planters succumbed, you can say, right, to the combined pressure. So we can add that the planters succumbed to combined pressure, and closed right their activities, is it okay? And you will see that gradually right this demand was also not there right outside you can say India. So therefore because of that demand was not there, right, they did not consider it as profitable, right, but this pressure contributed, and there was appointment of Indigo Commission, Indigo Commission, right, in 1869, Indigo Commission by the government. Okay. So Indigo Commission also in 1869. Fine. So Indigo revolt is a very popular revolt that we should remember. Then next revolt, peasant revolt, right, was Pabna revolt. Right, Pabna revolt of 1870s, or if you can remember one date, 1873 in Bengal. Sometimes they can give you 1870s or 72 to 76, so you should consider it correct, but this one date if you can remember 1873. So Pabna revolt, Pabna unrest, right, in East Bengal, right. So that was a very popular reaction. So Pabna was also a popular reaction, and we can add that it was also against the landlordism, and what we have to remember that Pabna revolt or the riots of the Pabna were not anti-British. This you have to remember. When you will analyze them, you will realize that they had problem with the landlord, but they were not anti-British, right? In fact, right, Bipin Chandra said, in fact, they wanted to be the Rayyats of the Majesty, Rayyats of the Majesty, right, and the Queen, right. So you will see that they were not anti-British. This is very interesting. They never criticized British, and they wanted to become the Rayyats of the Majesty or the Queen. And intelligentsia also played important role in, right, you can say, in Pavana. So we can add that intelligentsia also played important role in Pavana. Intelligentsia also played important role in Pavana. Like if you can remember some name like Isan Chandra Rai, some leaders of this Pavana, Isan Chandra Roy, then you will see after Isan Chandra Rai, right, what you call Sambhu Pal, right, and then supported by intelligentsia like B.C. Chatterjee, right, even R.C. Dutt. They highlighted their problem. So R.C. Dutt. So intelligentsia, right, of course, right, coming forward, and some local leader, even Khodi, right, Molla, right. So there are some local names also. So intelligentsia and then some leadership outside, you can say their class also came forward and helped Pavana, right, you can say Pavana Rayyat. And again this rebellion also suppressed, and right after that Bengal Tenancy Act 1885 was passed. Bengal Tenancy Act 1885 was passed, right. Done. So these are some less known areas, or we generally don't focus these areas, but they are asking question. And in your textbook you will see that they are giving you details about them. So how can we ignore it? So at least basic idea, right, all these ideas, right, you have to remember. Then the next after Pavana, right, you will see there was Deccan Rights, Peasant Revolt, Deccan Revolt or Deccan Rights it is called, Deccan Rights in 1875, Deccan Rights. And in Deccan Rights, so 1875 you should remember the date, and you will see the in this Deccan Right some district of Maharashtra, present day Maharashtra, particularly, right, the Pune, Ahmednagar, right, Ahmednagar, they became the centers of this Deccan Rights, right, they became the centers of these Deccan Rights. These two districts you have to remember, Pune and Ahmednagar. And in these areas cotton prices, right, prices had gone up, cotton prices had gone up. Why? Because of American Civil War in 1860s. So cotton prices had gone up due to the American Civil War. But when Civil War ended, end of Civil War, prices down, end of Civil War, American Civil War. We will discuss American Civil War in world history, right. So end of Civil War, when end of Civil War, you will see the prices down, prices crashed, right. And this led to what? This led to a reaction, and what is more important here, that they wanted to compensate. So, we can add that a 50% increase in rent by the government, increase in rent by the government, and a series of bad harvest, right, created more problem for the peasants, because they wanted to compensate this loss. And when they had no option, peasant had no option, what they did? They had to go to what? Money lenders. They had to go to money lenders, and money lender used this opportunity to exploit the peasants, right. And therefore, now I hope you are getting that now the peasant had no option. They started boycotting these money lenders also. They started attacking the money lenders. They started burning the records, right. And this is called Deccan Riots. Fine. And intelligentsia also played important role, because Pune Sarvajanik Sabha, right, organized a campaign among the peasants, Pune Sarvajanik Sabha, and one important leader was Justice Ranade, right, So, Pune Sarvajanik Sabha played important role, organized a campaign among the peasants. Fine. So, Deccan Riots also, like you can remember, and result of this Deccan Riot was a, you can say, enactment of Deccan Agriculturist Relief Act 1879. Is it okay? I hope you are getting it. Sometimes they can give you, right, Bengal Tenancy Act, Indigo Commission, Deccan Agricultural Relief Act, this kind of question. You have to arrange them, right. So, Indigo, right, very popular, intelligentsia came forward. Pavana, very popular, intelligentsia came forward. Then you have Deccan Riots, intelligentsia, right, came forward. Is this done? So, peasant revolt after 1857, you will see that their character changed, right, and gradually, right, intelligentsia also started coming forward, but it was spontaneous sometime, and then it was localized also, that you have to remember. After Deccan Riot, you will see that there is one more example